So hey guys, uh, I'm continuing the explanation of React concepts. Now we wanna see the context API. 1 minute. So React um, managing state. Yeah, let's just go with context. Um, when to use context? Context is designed to share data that can be considered global for tree of React components. Um, we can send the props, we can use context. For example, there is the thing here. Let's show it. Yeah. Uh, we are importing React and create context use use state. These are the two main things. We should import create context and use context for using the context API. So uh, for creating context, let's just say that we have to create a count context in which will be the state of the count will be defined in the count context provider. Um, let's just say that this context provider will be used by the other descendant uh, components. So let's yeah, I have said this in the old video. Count context provider, increase, decrease value, count context provider. Yeah, we can do this. Now we are optimizing the application that we have written before. If you haven't seen the last video yet, it will be interesting. Go check that out. And yeah, let's see this. It's the same as in the last video. Const count context equals create context, and this define the function the component where function count context provider will children will be sent as object as props, and uh, everything will be can be used by this component. So we'll be defining count context dot provider dot value, and we'll be sending props children as props. So count context provider is the component, which it's not a component. Basically, it's a function. I think it's not a function as well. It's a context. We are setting up the context. First, we are setting up the context by count context. We are creating context and then using the provider by provider function count context provider children. It's a basic syntax, and then we are using the provider function. We will be wrapping our increase, decrease, and value components, which are like changing the state of DOM in our website. We will be wrapping these components inside this provider so that the count and set count can be used by both not both increase component, all the components which are present inside this provider that we have defined in this function. So like if we want to use the count and set count in the decrease component, we will just write the syntax const count set count. It's an object. It's like destructuring. We will use context. It's a hook. It's not custom hook, I guess. Yeah, it's just a React hook. It's like using the you have the idea, right? You will be using count and set count. We may not even uh, get any value as an arguments as well. We'll just use the count and set count values or variables by use context hook and passing arguments as count, passing or count context as argument. This count context is here. We have to, I mean, yeah, I will explain simply this one. Yeah, first we have to declare the global variable count context here above the React application. We have to create a global variable which is like create context. It sets up the context which will be used by any descendant components. So we have to first create a global variable count context. This count context is like we are defining the count, right? So there may be another types of declarations like um, variable context, any other, got the idea. Count context equals create context. So we are creating the count context as a global variable, and then we are declaring a provider function which provides um, the context that can be used by the main components inside a parent component. So uh, the main provider function contains its name must be start with capital letter. The main component, the main function provider function, the children must be passed. Children object must be passed inside the main context provider function, and the children should be in a return statement. So in the provider function, we should be declaring the useState useState variable. It's like we are using useState to define count and set count that can be zero. If we want to use this count and set count from anywhere in the React application, we can define it here, and we can send this count and set count as child, as props to this for these main functions, increase decrease main components. So we'll be passing arguments children to the return statement, and we'll be here taking the name of the context provider function name that we have declared, and keep it in the context provider, I mean return statement. Count, no, 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 that's wrong, it's wrong. We will not be putting the context provider function name. We'll be putting uh, the global variable name dot provider, because we are we are declaring the provider function, and we will be passing the value of count and set count, and we'll be using children, and we'll be closing with slash count context dot provider. And this is mainly the important thing. It's a function that provides, it's like it acts like a provider function. And now if we want to use this provider, this count variable or set count variable in any part of our React application, in any component, if we cannot, we need not have to do prop drilling. We need not have to send this count and set count as props to this child. Or we can send this, but prop drilling is, it's a complicated thing. It's not a good way to write a code. So by using provider function after declaring the context, after creating and declaring the context and after declaring the provider function, we can use this provider function and get any value of the state that we have declared at any part of our React application. That should be again declared in a provider function as well. So how can we use in these components? Uh, uh, I will explain this. Uh, while declaring the while defining the components, just write this syntax. const this like objects count and set count is being uh, sent as objects. Uh, const count and set count equals use context. We are using this context which is being created and it's in provider function. We are using this context by using use context hook, and we will be sending the global variable here. We'll be sending the global variable in as argument in the use context hook inside a component. Will be it's a function, it's a component, right? Sorry, it's a component, right? We'll be having a return statement. It's a button click, the obvious thing. On click set, it's a function that sets counts uh, thing, and the jargon here. Okay, this is the context API. Now I'm going to explain about custom hooks. Custom hooks is a mildly hard topic, but I will explain to you. You can create functions. These are the basic points that I have been observing since I last started to learn React. So I will briefly go through one by one. You can't create functions that uses hooks, but you should create custom hooks. Uh, you um, you can't create a function which uses hooks like useState, useEffect, and use context. It's not a main hook, but you can't create a function which uses the hooks, but you can create custom hooks. The custom hooks must use the hooks, other hooks. The Yeah, the custom hooks must use other hooks. That's why we call it as custom hook. If the state changes or state variable changes, the component which contains the state also mounts. If the while using the useState custom useState hook, when the value of the state changes, the whole component re-renders. Component triggers a re-render, and then it mounts again. So to avoid this, we will wrap it in a use effect. Use effect is a hook which avoids the side effects, which avoids the triggering of re-renders. Okay, these are the basic thing. I don't have to say, you just read the document file. Custom hook in a React is a powerful feature that allows you to encapsulate and reuse stateful logic. Reuse stateful logic. This is important. Underline it. Yeah. They are used to encapsulate the logic. I think it's not that important, but again, it makes your website to look pretty, and it makes you um, you know with the impression of the maintainers or your boss, your manager, something. So it lets you to encapsulate and reuse the stateful logic across the different components. They are essentially a JavaScript functions that can use React hooks internally. So by creating custom hooks, you can abstract away complex logic. You can abstract. What do you mean by abstraction? Abstraction is like hiding the implementation of the core code, core logic, and just showing the output of that implementation. You can abstract away the complex logic, making the components slimmer and more manageable. So, why do we use custom hooks? You must use custom hooks for one, reusability, and two, separation of concerns. So, yeah. We use custom hooks for reusability. You will have that, you will be seeing yourself reusing the same logic in multiple components. So these custom hooks can make your life easy by reusing the components, the logic in the components. Yeah, that's the mota upper layer. Separation of concerns. This allows you to separate business logic and your logic, making your components more focused and easier to understand. Commonly used custom hooks are, let me code this thing. This is like a complex thing that we need to understand. Let me close this. Yeah, let me start to code this. First, we will see the use prev custom hook. We must create another folder like hooks, man, hooks, and we create a file called useFetch.js. So now we will be using useFetch custom hook. By firstly we will be importing, man, use state and use effect. They are main pillars of React. Use state from React, and then we will be creating a use fetch function const use fetch equals function that will take something as an argument, and let's just define some states, and let's define the use effect as well, and we will be using fetch data function that we defined in the use effect. So let's just say that, let's just define the state const data comma set data equals use state null const loading comma set loading use state true. Initially the loading state is true. I mean, man, true. Yeah, initially we will be defining these both states, and we will use effect, and this will be sending we will be using function and dependency array. This function takes an argument, an argument, and we will be fetching the data from by using use fetch custom inside the use effect hook. It's like we are used we will if when we are using the use fetch custom hook inside a app component, we need to send some data to fetch, right? That'll be that logic will be defined in a use effect hook. Mm, that's the definition of the custom hook, right? We should be using hooks inside the uh, components or functions. And also the custom hooks must the name of the custom hooks must starts with use. So now we will be defining the function in the use effect hook fetch data equals async async function. The advantage of using a custom hook is that we cannot send without the custom hook, that is without the use effect, we cannot send async. We cannot use async function here. We can only use async function in the function in the hook where we are using the function. And firstly, we'll be setting the loading set loading as true. Sorry, true. And then we will write the main logic, that is sending the request, or that is what the use effect is use fetch is used for. Const response equals await fetch uh, our custom URL, man URL. This URL is being sent to this by using will be bringing this URL by using this argument here, URL. So we'll be using await here, and we will again await the response to the JSON format. Const result, sorry, result. We will be awaiting this response to JSON data. And then we will be setting the data with the result. It's null value, right? Initially it's a null value. Now it will be result. We will be updating the state with the result object. Result object contains the main thing, you know. Okay, and then after this we'll be setting the loading as false. And again we have to set the loading as false, so that if there is some time between this, right, we can uh, render there will be, I think, 300 to 400 milliseconds gap. We'll be um, rendering the loading dot screen, or that word between the set loading value true to false. Will be toggling between this state, right, will be toggling between true and false. After that, we'll be calling fetch data, fetch data. After defining the function, we'll be calling the fetch data, and we'll be passing this URL. Whenever the new URL comes, according to the dependency, it will be triggering the re-rendering of this component as a whole. That's the thing. And after this, we'll be returning something from this useFetch custom. We'll be returning the data loading and something other, I guess. Just ignore it. There's a thing. There's a custom hook, use preview custom hook, and use fetch custom hook. Use preview custom hook is nothing but it will be showing the previous value of the state which have already rendered. That is use preview custom hook. I'll be showing you the use preview custom hook in the next video. So until then, revise this use fetch custom hook. Thank you. Bye.